All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Ms. Natalie, and today I'm going to show you how to draw a chiaroscuro sphere. Please ignore the rainbow on my paper. That's from the sticker in my window. Okay, I'm going to start by making my circle, and I'm going to use the ghosting technique to kind of get a sense of where my circle would be before I lay my pencil down very lightly and make a number of circles around and around until I feel like I probably have a pretty good circle somewhere in there. And I can sketch out the edge of the circle fairly well. I'm using an ebony pencil, but you can use any pencil at all to do this. And this exercise, will work for the Baroque still life assignment because a still life is just an arrangement of inanimate objects. And this is loosely based on an image of a actual sphere on a table of some sort with a background. So I'm just gonna put in that table also. See, make sure that this is focused so we can see it. All right. Okay. The other thing I'm gonna do is lay in my shadow. It's going to be slightly behind the sphere because my light is going to be shining right about here. That's where my highlight is going to be. I can go ahead and put a circle in for where my highlight is going to be. All right. Now, this is my cast shadow. It's the shadow that's made because the light is being blocked by the sphere. So that is going to be the darkest tone in my drawing. Go in and lay down the darkest color that I possibly can, the darkest black that this pencil will do for my shadow, my cast shadow. All right. And then I'm going to make another circle like I did to make the small circle for my highlight. You see that? I'm going to make a big circle for big circle for my core shadow. This is darkest shadow. Have it go more down there. The darkest shadow that is on the object. It's going to be slightly lighter than that cast shadow. And I'm also going to leave a little sliver here by the table where the reflected light, the light that's bouncing off the table and back onto my sphere. Doesn't have to be very big. Hmm. All right, this is going to be my core shadow, and I'm going to make it not quite as dark as my cast shadow. Just realized I'm kind of annoying holding my paper down. So I was going to see if I had something that I could put down. I was going to lay my phone down on the side of my paper to hold it in place. That works. If I was smart, I would have thought about taping this down before I started. Oop, and I would have also made sure that there wasn't anything on my table too, because that will create texture. I'm also doing this on a wooden table that does have a little bit of texture to it. So that texture is going to show up a bit in while I am shading because I'm using the side of my pencil to shade. Right. So one of the requirements of this assignment is to have a wide range of value from dark black to white white. I've got my dark black right here. And then I've got a lighter shade here, slightly lighter value. And that cast shadow is going to be the core shadow. And this is pretty good. I might come back and work on this more, but that's pretty good. Okay, the next thing is the form shadow. I'm going to make another circle. If I just drew these in straight lines, it wouldn't make it look like a sphere. It look like a circle with lines on it. But by curving my lines around the circle, it makes it look three-dimensional. If I just drew lines around it, those would be called cross contour lines. They're showing the um, basically the way that the light would bend around it or the shadows would bend around it. So this is the form shadow. It's not as dark as the core shadow. It's definitely not as dark as the cast shadow. It's basically the next shadow in place. It's going to be just a little bit lighter. That's too dark. One of the issues it is harder to go lighter once you get something dark. So it's always best to go light to dark when you are doing anything really. Working with color, use the lighter colors to the darker colors. If you're laying down value with shading, go from the start very light and then just add more as you need it. I said I was going to possibly make this darker, so I think I'll do that now. And while I'm adding these two shadows, while I'm adding the form shadow, I'm also kind of blending in the uh, the form shadow into the core shadow. So I'm making it slightly darker where the two meet and slightly lighter at the top. Because the next thing is the local color, which is called the mid-tone. So I'm gonna, again, making that circle so that the lines curve around, my shadows curve around, although this isn't a shadow anymore. Now we're moving into the actual color of the object. In this case, I'm looking at sort of a grayish sphere. Um, and this should probably be a whole lot bigger, actually. And I might actually make this shadow a little bigger too. A little more shadow, darken up this area here a little bit and move my form shadow out just a little bit. I'm working around the sphere. And I'm just looking at it as I go to see, does this look kind of three-dimensional? Am I getting that three-dimensional look from it? And I feel like I am. All right. All right. And now I'm going to blend my mid-tone into my highlight. And I'm just going to get lighter and lighter as I get closer to that highlight. As you can see, I'm probably going to blend it with my finger. Let's see, and I can look at my drawing, and I'm actually going to look at it on the screen because that helps, and it makes me realize I probably need a little more shadow down here. More shadow there, maybe a little more shadow here, just making sure that it's looking around and there's not too much shadow in one place. Of course, I've got a little too much shadow here and there because I can't not, but that's okay. I can come back, use my eraser a little bit, blend everything out, and this looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this reflected light and I'm going to try to do those same really light really light shading on there. So it looks like it looks like a highlight, but not as bright as my actual highlight. And I might actually even make this a thinner, a little thinner of that reflected light. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to erase that circle that I made for my shadow. And I'm going to make this very dramatic. I'm going to go Baroque with it, go for Baroque. And I am going to put a dark shadow behind my sphere, just on the wall or whatever. We've got a table, we've got a surface, and we've got a wall. So I'm going to do that. So it really looks, we've got some tenebrism happening where it looks like I have a gray sphere that is emerging from a dark background. I'm going to do this relatively quickly. Um, if I were going to turn this in for the assignment, I would definitely work longer on it. I might even get a different, darker color to do the background in. I'm not sure. Although I kind of like it. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of texture from the wooden table that I'm working on. And actually, I'm digging that texture. I also like that despite this being darker than my sphere, it's not darker than my cast shadow. I really like that I am doing that cast shadow as I'm keeping the cast shadow as the the darkest tone. There we go. It is the darkest tone on my paper. It is the darkest value. That's the word I really want to use because that's the actual term for that element of art. Because our focus in this drawing is value, darkness and lightness, and form, creating that illusion of three dimensions on the sphere. And as I said before, this chiaroscuro sphere drawing, chiaroscuro value drawing can count towards the Baroque still life assignment because you're basically making an object, an arrangement of an object. I'm really liking this. I do feel like the shading isn't quite dark enough. I feel like I might need a little bit more shadow here just to get it finished, to make it look exactly like the way I want it. And then I could use a Q-tip or a blending stick or just my finger to blend these together. a little bit more. Although I kind of like the marks that I've made, especially the marks that go around and around the sphere, because it really adds to this the feeling of value, the not value, I'm sorry, the feeling of form. So that sense of form. And also one thing, this shadow could be slightly blended out because usually shadows aren't perfectly crisp. They're often a little fuzzy. And I could take this all the way to the end, but it gives it kind of a fun, sketchy look to not take it all the way to the corners. So I think I might just leave it. I like the energy, I like the movement, and I like my drawing. So that is how you draw a chiaroscuro sphere that has a cast shadow, a core shadow, a form shadow, a midtone, a highlight, a little reflected light, and a dark background that it can emerge from. So go out and make yourself some art.